So you can begin whenever you would like.
Did they need the signatures?
Does everybody sign these?
Yes, yeah, so everyone needs a charge list. Thank you.
I signed mine first one.
First one.
They'll give us a charge.
Just
My brother-in-law lives in a town south of Houston, and fireworks burned down one of his neighbor's homes.
Oh, no.
And unfortunately, there's a blind person with 3 disabled people that lived in the house,
Agendas?
so they're homeless now.
I have.
Good, do you have one? Or-
I'll take one.
Sorry to interrupt that. All right, we have quorum, we'll go ahead and get started. Calling to order the July Sustainability Commission meeting. Thank you to Tracy, who's not here, for taking over last month, really appreciate that. Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah, go ahead and start off with roll. I'll start, we can go clockwise. Patrick Fitzgerald, member, present.
Melanie Glenn, staff liaison, present.
Elizabeth Shaw, member, present.
Killian Williams, alternate member, present.
Lana Garcia, member, present. And then Tanya.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, Tanya Faust, alternate, present.
Perfect.
Hillary Kerwin, member, present.
Bruce Raymond, member present.
Logan Dunning, member, present.
Rick Hemel-Heinz, member present.
Perfect, and we got nobody online. So yeah, with that, we'll go ahead and move forward to the approval of last meeting's minutes. Before we do any comments, edits, concerns, if not, I'll go ahead and open it for someone to approve.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion,
Second.
we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say nay. Perfect.
Gosh, you guys go so fast. That was Logan.
Patrick does really
Is that
quick
Logan?
through it.
No, Rick
I did.
Oh, it was Rick.
Elizabeth.
Okay.
Elizabeth, sorry. I know we got
Okay,
a lot
so
on
it
the
was
agenda.
Rick and then Elizabeth. Okay, perfect.
Perfect. So yeah, with that, we'll go ahead and move into the meat of our meeting, starting off with the swearing in of the new members.
All right, so I'll take this beginning part, because I'm assuming Patrick doesn't want to recite an oath. Actually, no, you have to read
I do,
it.
yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal this. So we are missing one alternate. He already let me know if he'll be here at the next meeting. His plane got delayed, which I was like, that happened, so it's all good. Okay, so for the new folks, I'm going to read off this oath and then just follow basic after what I say. So when I say I blank do solemnly swear, please just say your name. And then at the end, you're sworn in. Any questions, concerns, qualms?
I have to say it too.
Logan, you have to say it too because you didn't do it last time. You know, for the honor of the commission. Okay, ready. So I blank do solemnly swear or affirm.
I, Patrick Fitzgerald, do solemnly swear or affirm
That I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
The Constitution of the State of Colorado,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Englewood,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Englewood,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties of office as a either alternate or member, say whichever one you are,
Faithfully
perform the duties of office as a member
of the Sustainability Commission during my continuance therein.
of the Sustainability Commission during my continuance there.
Woo! You're sworn in! And then, oh, sorry. And then something that we would love to have from you, actually, Pat, I'll have you lead this, just the introductions.
Yeah, so I guess do we want to go all the way around or just new?
Let's be all the way around.
All right, let's go all the way around. Introduction for new people and vice versa. So yeah, quick icebreaker. How long have you lived in Englewood? What inspired you to join? Any other, where you live in Englewood? Feel free to give a quick spiel. I guess I'll start off. I've been in Inglewood for 2.5 years. I think I've been on the commission for 2 years now, if it's the signing, if that determines that. But yeah, what inspired me to first join, so I've always kind of put all my efforts into climate change and all that I can do against it. That's part of my occupation. And I feel like a huge portion of that is what you can do on a local scale. I feel like that really multiplies your voice. So once I found out about the Sustainability Commission here in Inglewood, I decided to join, and I haven't looked back since. So.
And Patrick is your chair of the commission.
Chair.
Oh, you going this way?
Take it away.
I was waiting.
Popcorn, Rick.
Rick Himmelheinz, been a commission member for, let's say, probably 3 or 4 years now, I'm not sure. I've lived in Inglewood now for about 11 years. And I hate to say this because I was assigned to the Sustainability Commission by the council. And it wasn't that I didn't want to, it's just that it's kind of like getting drafted. But I think that it's a good thing because I love this committee. I think this is the most passionate group of people that I've ever met about causes and the changes that they want to make in this city. And I'm thrilled to be here and always have been. So, yeah.
It's good.
Okay.
Logan Dunning. I have been on the commission for 5 years, maybe 6. I was on Keep Inglewood Beautiful before it became the Sustainability Commission. I've lived in Inglewood for 6 years. We live in Duncan Park. I initially joined Keep Inglewood Beautiful because I liked the mission. I saw a vision for KEB to being a vehicle to push policy and thoughts and ideas to council. And then we expanded our scope to the Sustainability Commission, which has been fantastic. So we love Inglewood. We started a family here, and I just want to make sure Inglewood can, stay Inglewood, but we are also responsibly accounting for the growth that we're experiencing so that my kids can go to school here and people can work here and live here. So that's what inspired me to.
Okay, Bruce Raymond. I live in Rotella neighborhood. Moved there 2 years ago, just a month longer than 2 years ago. And my interest was really to get involved locally. Sustainability is really important. Went to the sustainability, what was that called?
The Climate Resiliency Workshop.
Climate Resiliency Workshop. And I really enjoyed that. And I think it's twofold. I like the idea of being involved in this, being part of what the city sets for sustainability, but also being part of how the city can respond to people that live here to make it a better place for them also.
Hi, I'm Christine Brinker. I agree with all of what you guys said. Patrick, what you said word for word, I think if you're recording this, just like rewind it and say hi to put it into my voice because you said it perfectly. But to recap, sustainability is my top issue. If we don't have a healthy environment or healthy people, we don't have anything else. And that's my day job. My day job is in energy efficiency, in particular energy efficiency in buildings and state and local policy therein. And outside of work, I love to daydream about having better bike infrastructure and vibrant communities and better greenery and native plants everywhere and less waste and all of the other topics we work on. So it fits in very well, and I am delighted to be here. Thank you.
Hillary Kerwin again. Lived in Inglewood for 3 years, been on this committee since February. Inspired to, and I live in the Whitaker neighborhood. Inspired to join like 2 folks who have gone so far, work on climate issues, my day job, and I'm very interested in how to affect change locally as well, particularly with heat waves and fewer water resources to go around in our part of the country.
My name's Tanya Faust. I've been in Inglewood 24 years. I've been in environmental wacko since I was 5, and I wear that badge proudly. I was very active in causes and organizations when I was younger, and then kind of in the middle of my life, I kind of, life gets in the way. And now that I have more time, I'm still working, but I don't work as much. And my normal personality is I want to save the world, but I know you can't save the world, but you can try to save who or what's in front of you, local. And then that's all we can do. But the sustainability committee, the things that it works on speaks to my heart. And it's so interesting that we're going to be talking about the waste thing tonight, because this and the pesticide and herbicide issues are what I'm most concerned about.
You picked a great meeting to start.
This is great. So I'm not sure why it's taken me so long to get involved in things in Inglewood.
It's never too late.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
Sometimes the stars have to align.
Hi, I'm Lana Garcia. This is, I think, the beginning of my second year on the committee. It's been a year. I've lived in Inglewood for 10 years in the Hawthorne Heights neighborhood. I think that's right. And I've been inspired. I'm a PhD student in environmental studies at CU Boulder, and I'm really interested in deliberative democracy and how people can actually come together to talk about climate and environmental challenges. So as I finished up school, I really wanted to get involved with concrete issues and to contribute to my community, and I'm kind of interested in everything, sustainability, kind of all of it, but especially green space.
I'm Killian Williams. I have lived in Inglewood for about 2.5 years. Before that, I was been in Denver been in the area for a little over a decade. Live in Forest Hill neighborhood on Clarkson. Joined the committee last February as well. I believe that's when we were sworn in. After going to the climate resiliency workshop that was held previously to that. Started wanting to get involved in something in Inglewood after moving here and going from, a big city to a city of 30,000 some, and just realizing your vote and everything you do matters that much more. But also I did get to work with the, Denver calls it the CASR, Climate Action Sustainability Resiliency Program. Specifically, I was at one of the bike shops that administered their e-bike rebate, the city e-bike rebate before the state one was rolled out, and I got to see the direct impact that had in people's lives, and just watching that change someone's daily routine. So that was what kind of got me thinking about some sort of city-based action, and then decided to start looking for committees last November for no reason in particular.
I'm Elizabeth. I bought my first house in Inglewood to really age myself about 20 years ago. And we have lived here ever since. My husband bought a house, I bought one, and now we have one together. I also live in the Forest Hills neighborhood, but I want to live in Whitaker because my kid's named Whitaker. Which I've always loved. I was like, we should live there. And then I think I'm coming up on 2 years, or I don't know, 1.5 years maybe.
Maybe 2.
Time flies.
Time does fly.
You blink. And so my drive to it was actually my kids. I am really worried that nothing is going to be left behind for them, that they're going to live in, they've only got one earth, and I'm worried about what happens. And so I thought this is starting to address that and take care of it. And if they see me taking care of it, I hope that gets passed on, and because it's important to them. So I'm, generational knowledge.
Right, well, you all made me realize if we ever deal with low commission turnout, I should just host a resiliency workshop.
No, yeah.
But I'm Melanie Lynn, I'm the Sustainability Program Manager for the city. I'm your staff liaison for the commission. And then the Mayor Sierra, who is online right now, he is our council liaison for this commission as well. We are very, very lucky to have the mayor as our liaison, if you ask me. And then before we continue on, I want to do just a really quick new member 101. everything here is in all your packets, but it can just be a lot of reading, so I just want to highlight some really important ones. If you've never heard of it, there's the Colorado Open Meeting Laws, or COML, and this is really to ensure that any conversations that are being had, the public knows about it and the public can join in on them. So no more than 2 members can email or meet with each other. Or else if there's more than that, that breaks COML. Members are allowed and encouraged to go speak at city council for public comment. Absolutely exercise that free right. You just can't speak on behalf of the commission as your own opinion. So you can't say the commission really wants X, Y, and Z when we've never talked about it. And then the last thing up there is, if you're in doubt, refer to the Sustainability Commission bylaws. That's that shorter one, or just email or call me. I'm happy to help, and I love that I spelled my own name wrong. But I'm here as a resource. Don't be overwhelmed. Nothing is too overwhelming, but that's just a little 101. For the new members, any questions you have off the bat that fellow members or myself can answer?
Not yet.
All right. Back to you.
All right, up next, standing community projects updates. I forget who falls under this. If you have anything.
This was just a catch-all.
Okay. If there is anyone who wants to speak, go right ahead. Otherwise, we can move. We have some community updates later on.
At next month's meeting, we'll need, well, I guess we'll have to have a communication subcommittee at our August meeting. Looking at the calendar. Because it looks like the call for the winter stories is gonna be late August, so Mel, I'll follow up with you. And we'll find it then. And that's for context. We have a communication subcommittee that puts forward sustainability related ideas to pitch to the city's communications team to put into the quarterly magazine.
They're an all-star team.
Right, up next, standing DRCOG updates. Any news?
Yeah, we have a lot of news. It is starting to roll really fast. And so this is gonna be creeping up on our radar for maybe what we should start talking about as a group over the next few months. Let's see, there's the policy side and then there's the funding side. So on the funding side, this project is so far still getting its funding from the federal government because it's under contract. And so it hasn't been clawed back yet. And so it is a fair amount of funding that will be distributed to all of the DRCOG jurisdictions. I should say DRCOG is Denver Regional Council of Governments. It's our Denver metro area, all of the local governments in this area. And so there's funding that is going to go to every local government that applies, and they're called jurisdictional subawards. And we will have to apply for it for some specific uses. And those uses can include staff capacity to work on any sort of building decarbonization issue, technical assistance, training and certifications, permitting improvements, and those sorts of things. What we can't apply to do with it is to distribute it as incentives or rebates to residents, because that's a different part of the program that is already going to be distributing rebates to residents and businesses. So we need to start thinking about what we might want to apply for funding and see what the staff and council have appetite for applying for. And applications are accepted on a rolling basis up through October 31st. And I think the maximum is 125,000.
600,000 for Englewood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So Englewood, we've already been talking internally about what we're gonna be applying for. Sheridan and Littleton, we've had kind of Tri-Cities conversation if there's anything there. I don't think it'll be a Tri-Cities thing, but yeah, I can dive in more next month when we fleshed out a little more of what we're thinking, because we definitely want your all opinion if you think it's going in the right direction.
That'd be great.
That sounds good.
Can you clarify decarbonization, building decarbonization, would anything in, would waste diversion, even like building kind of, building waste diversion, such as recycling and composting facilities on site for commercial use, be
Not
potentially
really.
under the scope or not really? I'm just asking because that's coming up.
Right, right. I would guess the only waste that could maybe fall into it is construction diversion, construction waste and
I
demolition.
don't even know if that
Diversion.
would, it's very
That'd be
much,
creative.
yeah,
It's
it's
more
very much
like
like
point
the-
of use decarb.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right, efficiency and renewables, and electrification and that for residential or commercial. Energy codes are a big focus, and one of the valid uses for the funding is to hire an energy code specialist, or share an energy code specialist with another jurisdiction. And there are other policies that could fall into it as well. This sort of funding, I think, doesn't come around very often, especially these days, and it's not gonna maybe continue to come around very often. And so I think this is one of those things that we wanna jump on rather than let us pass it by, because it might not come, for a decade, who knows. But there is a separate grant program from the state, also from EPA, and they're kind of running in parallel. And that one also goes to local governments, and that includes building, but it also includes transportation or land use or waste diversion. And basically the only rule is you can't apply to both of them for the same project, but you can apply to both of them for different projects, and so waste things could go there. And based on some of their past grants, they haven't gotten a flood of applicants enough to more than overuse all the funding. And so the funding, I think, is there if we come up with a good use for it and a good application for it. That's the funding side, and then the policy side is also picking up, and they are forming cohorts of local governments in the DRCOG region based on size. They went back and forth, how should we arrange all the local governments, because 58 talking at once is a bit chaotic. And so they decided based on size as kind of like your peer group. And Sheridan is way smaller and Littleton is a lot bigger, but I think they finally decided to just put Sheridan and Englewood together in the
They
same
did,
cohort.
for my sake. They were like,
Yeah.
you don't have to come to 2 meetings.
Right,
I was
right.
like, that's really nice.
And so those cohorts, as they're getting started up, will discuss some roadmap options, what policies they want to see, et cetera. And then from there, reshuffle the groups into pursuing specific policies and coming up with some model policy language or some shared priorities, whether that's pursuing strengthened energy codes or building performance standards or whatnot. So that's what will come out of the policy side, and that's called the Buildings Policy Collaborative, BPC.
You're developing policy for DRCOG to administrate, or the?
DRCOG is overseeing and facilitating and getting the funding from the federal government and hiring staff and contractors to run the cohorts of city government staff, et cetera, to come up with the policies that they want to implement, they being each local government.
And it's each local government who applies?
Yep.
Is there a max to how much you can get out of that 199? I remember 2 million at some point, or is there any numbers?
For jurisdictional subawards, Mel was saying 600,000.
Our max, so they RA divvy it and they have a few factors of how they do it. So Englewood, we can apply up to 600,000, Sheridan's 300,000, Littleton's 900,000, and it's non-competitive. So we just have to apply and say this is what we would like, which is really nice. So yes, we definitely are applying for it. It's definitely on our radar, and we'll talk more about what we're thinking at the next one.
Well, the city's fleshing out sort of ideas on how to apply this money. Are you all viewing projects through the lens of this is going to be one-time use pot of money?
So the nice thing is the 600,000 bucket of money you can spread out throughout like 4 or 5 years. So they're thinking like if you hire staffing capacity of like a contractor, you could have that contractor for anywhere from like 3 to 5 years, however much you need. But yes, 100% knowing that it is a one-time use.
Okay, thanks.
Cool, promising.
All right, it is moi. So hopefully you all, well, except for the new folks, I'll do a little background. So the cities of Englewood, Littleton, Sheridan, and Centennial, I think over a year ago, we got awarded from the state to do a waste characterization study fully funded by the state. And essentially what that is, you said you read the entire plan, so I'm like, you already know.
Don't ask me any questions.
So essentially what that is the consultant really did a deep dive into our waste. They went to the landfill, hand sorted trash trucks to see what our diversion and what's our biggest problem areas. And then they also did a lot of engagement. Tracy, I think, went to one of their resident waste champion trainings. They did focus group listening sessions with our more lower income folks, our multifamily folks. And then we also did a city council retreat. We hosted 2 of them where city council could kind of get the beginning knowledge of the waste diversion, share their feedback. And so that is resulting in this waste characterization diversion study and plan. I have study in there, but it's a study and plan. So all 4 cities are bringing this to their city council for hopeful adoption of the recommended goals for the region and goal for their individual city. I was talking to the contractor about it and they said this plan, because it's already had such high stakeholder influence throughout the entire process, what they're looking for is not what recommendations if they should be changed, but if there's anything on the implementation side or anything that you'd be I really hope the city does X, Y, and Z. But those recommendations are already pretty solid from hearing from council, hearing from staff, hearing from residents, and from the survey they got out there. So just know that going in that those probably won't change that much, if at all. And then for a timeline, these dates are a little wrong, I'm sorry. This got moved, so it's going for a study session on July 28th. And what we would love after the presentation, after the discussion with the commission, if you all feel a general consensus that you do like this plan, you do like what's in there, it would be helpful for us as staff to have a letter of recommendation or a letter of support from the commission. If you all decide to. If you all do not want to do a letter of support, that is totally fine as well. Let's see, what else do we have here? And then the last thing to know too, so the plan with the goals within it, if this goes to city council and gets adopted, there's nothing in here that is binding. Maybe that's awesome to you, maybe that's not awesome to you, but each recommendation within it would have to go back to council individually. This is not saying adopt this plan and then we're doing everything. This is more like a blueprint for what staff would do if it's adopted of looking into further. So just know that right off the bat too. And then I'm gonna do a presentation just on a really high level, and let me make this bigger. Assuming that you all read at least the regional part and Englewood's part, but if you didn't and you want more context, don't be shy. I'm happy to go into more detail about it as well. So Starting with this regional recommendation, this is what our contractors were like, these are really the 3 things that all 4 cities can jointly do together that would really increase waste diversion. And these are also not listed in order of importance, so just know that as well. One thing is support and or develop a regional recycling drop-off center within this South Metro area. Something that I thought was really interesting is they did a survey of the entire Front Range. About 80% of the Front Range has pretty accessible, is it in a pretty accessible range of a recycling drop-off center. South Metro is in that 20% that really does not, and I hear this from a lot of residents. They're like, where do I take my recycling? I have a lot of cardboard, and I have to tell them to drive all the way up to like Denver. It's really not the best advice to give, but it's all that we got. So that was one of their key ones, is like create some kind of accessibility for the region. The other one was work together regionally towards improving organic diversion access and supporting a large-scale organics processing infrastructure that accepts food and other compostables. And I want to highlight that it says support a large-scale organic infrastructure. That doesn't necessarily mean it's looking for the municipalities to create that themselves. This could be the private sector that does it. It could be in many slew of different ways, but we're also lacking in that area as well. And then finally, before I do a little break here, is just support efforts to increase multifamily and commercial access to recycling and compost services. So before I move to the Englewood specific ones, just so we don't get like too much information overload at once, how are we feeling about these top 3? Anything that jumps out?
Do you have any idea how they came up with the top 3?
Yeah, so they came up with the top 3 by a few factors of looking at what the region had or didn't have. So kind of what I said earlier, like 80% has access, we don't. The contractors have also been working in this space for a really long time. And so they were like, okay, here are key things that are missing. And then also talking with residents. So this recycling drop-off, they said when they were doing their groups and listening to folks, this was the one that they heard a lot, that people wish that they had access to this. Then just other data points, but I can ask the contractors too, like how different ones came up with the top.
Yeah, that's helpful, because I didn't know if they had some formula of like the site I'm just looking at that charge like the diversion impact versus how much it's gonna cost.
Well, that was, the diversion impact was a question I had. It just has the one symbol, which I'm assuming that means that they don't see that that will have as much impact as, for instance, 5.2.
Yeah, and in the plan, they gave tonnage of what a 1, 2, and 3 symbol is. Let me pull that up really quick. But yeah, one little recycling symbol is less of an impact than a bigger one.
What, sorry, why you look at it? Why does, if that, like if you look at the dollars or whatever, and then that, why does 5.2 have a later timeline than 5.1? If it's gonna have more impact and fiscal impact, do you see what I'm saying? I'm looking at the time, I could be looking at it wrong.
So I'm assuming the consultant put that in there out of feasibility, but these are good questions and I can ask them too. So why does 5.1 have a shorter turnaround than 5.2?
Yeah,
Another
and it looks like they won't start it till like fiscal year 30, is that what that means?
Mm-hmm.
A thing I'm curious about, regional, maybe it is just regionally. I noticed in Englewood more than half of the municipal solid waste, at least according to the table they had, was from commercial, not residential use. And so I'm not quite putting together how an effort to increase multifamily and commercial access to recycling and compost would have less impact than residential compost, which I'm also strongly in favor of. I would love if we had residential access to compost. Maybe that's a Englewood's mix of businesses and multifamily as compared to like lots of single family in Littleton and Centennial, but maybe that's just me not knowing the regional versus Englewood specific.
Yeah, Englewood and Sheridan are pretty high for commercial waste. So I'm sorry, you said why is?
Yeah, I'm just, well, yeah, I'm wondering why they see single family only access to organic diversion as so much more impactful than multifamily and commercial access when, at least in Englewood, and and maybe that's just more in our interest as Englewood and kind of and comparing the divergent impact of commercial versus single-family residential programs in our community as opposed to regionally.
That's a great question. One thing I'm assuming, and again, I'll ask the contractor or the consultant, is I think something that's really heavily also dictating these is that Colorado passed the Extended Producer Responsibility Bill, which for those who don't know what that is, residents in single family and multifamily will get access to free recycling starting in 2026. The business sector, that probably won't happen until 2028. So something more feasible for the region to do if you want to see that increase in recycling is to go where it's free for folks. I'm assuming that's why the single family and residential bubble to the top, as well as the fact that Centennial and Littleton are in there. Centennial's so large and it's really residential heavy. Those are my assumptions, but I'll get for sure clarity on that when I ask.
Now, wasn't that for municipalities that have one single hauler?
EPRs for anyone. I will say those who have a single hauler contract will get their reimbursement funds much faster because it's easier for them to be like, oh, you already have this, here's how much, there you go.
That was in Englewood's recommendations, which it's like.
Yeah, so there's also really interesting data too in this plan when you look at the different communities and how much residents have reported that they're paying for trash. Sheridan is like the clear city that they're paying way less, which I also thought was really fascinating. So there's some stuff right there too, but yeah. Anything else? These are great questions. Anything else for these recommended ones?
Yeah, just to build off what he was saying, like it did seem for the recommendations that like anything having to do with like business regulation
So,
maybe
like-
is less feasible than dealing with residential.
So wondering if that's,
Yeah, I'm just wondering if like whoever put this together thinks it's less feasible to interfere with like the business community, or if there's like a reason that they don't
it's,
want to have higher requirements, like they're afraid of scaring businesses away or what's
no,
going
definitely
on.
not the scaring of business because we have business and C&D stuff throughout the plan.
Okay.
But with EPR that we're gonna see a lot of recycling with the residential hopefully going up. And again, it's just lagging a few years behind for business. And I'll say also too, so we have the Sustainable Business Partnership Program, and something our Green Business Program Coordinator is hearing a lot from our businesses is they're like, yeah, we would love to recycle, but it's so cost prohibitive for our business that we can't do it. Which means EPR is gonna be great for them just a few years down the line. Mayor Sierra, I saw that you came off mute. I just wanted to make sure there was nothing you wanted to add.
No, actually, I just switched up from my phone to the laptop, so I was just driving.
Got
That was it.
All right, so moving on to, if I can even find it, the next slide. So here are the Englewood specific, let me make these bigger. Recommendations, again, not listed, oh, that is not readable, hold on. Not listed in order of importance. So something we have here is, for the first one, is work with internal city departments such as our Parks, Rec, Library, and Golf, and/or our Public Works Department to utilize finished compost in municipal projects, and the Community Development Department to connect developers with finished compost. Something that we're seeing across the state of Colorado is we're lacking this end market for compost. People really like composting, but some people in like urban areas, they might not have a use for it. So truly, to be a circular economy, you need to put it back in the soil. So this is where this one is coming from for that. So I'll stop after each one because I think that's a better way to do it. Any Questions, comments, or anything here?
I'm again confused why there's only one symbol for the impact of that. That seems to be huge. Is there, that seems odd.
Maybe it's because if it's getting the compost to the end user is not as impactful as like the composting starting. Does that make sense? Like, if you're like, oh, everybody's composting, that's great. It's not in the landfill. It's still compost in a landfill, but it's not in the, that's already been, I don't know.
No, because if it's based on weight of diversion, the wet food material and plant material is going to weigh a lot more than this. So that could be part of it.
Oh, Hillary.
These are great questions for the contractor. And I will say
These
our
are
contractor is
really
like a data wonk. She will love these and she will have all the questions to them, all the answers to them. I'm just not sure.
These
What's
are
it-
really technical questions. Being an environmental studies with scientists, like I don't understand this stuff, but I know of a lot of like environmental facts like this are not intuitive. They're like very counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it would be nice to actually know the reasons.
Yeah.
I did wonder where the finished compost would be coming from.
So we actually have, that is TBD, but we do have a really incredible composter right in Sheridan, A1 Organics. And I know they're always looking for people to partner with. So that would be my first assumption.
Does A1 Organics do Denver's compost? I feel like they do part of it.
Probably their location in Keensburg. So the one in Sheridan is only yard waste, not food waste. But for something like parks and everything, that would be totally fine. Anything else?
Does the timeline allow for the consultant to come before the commission? If we wanted to ask her things
That's
directly?
that's us.
No, and we just got our finalized one from the consultant last week, which is why this is coming from you now. Because they needed to finalize with each city. Yeah. But she is really fast at responding, so what I can do is get answers from her and then give that update as well. Okay, with silence, I'm gonna take it that we're good to go to the next one. So 7.2, establish a construction and demolition recycling ordinance. This is actually something that's already in our sustainability plan that we need to be working on. And it was, it's a really good top recommendation for waste diversion.
I love that.
Is this for residential?
Commercial,
It's commercial.
like, yeah.
Is the fact that there's 4 on this, which is a great rate, indicative of the fact that there is a lot of commercial waste out there that currently is not being?
Yeah, we actually, so our consultant is from R2, but they also partner with EcoCycle. And we heard from someone at EcoCycle who's been there for a really long time that they went to like a scrapyard where a bunch of construction goes and they were absolutely floored. It's apparent, like so much pristine stuff that could just go right back into the system. So yeah, you get a lot of waste.
That's what I was gonna ask you, is it mostly like unusable, needs to be, like an empty soda can? I know that's not a great example, but like needs to be crushed and recycled and whatever. Or are these things that are like, yeah, this could be like used as is, we just need to get it somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
That feels like something that you would just put a sign on next door. Like, here it is.
Have lumber, please come get it.
Yeah, we had to like tie ours down for months to make sure it didn't get stolen. I feel like that's what people are gonna come get it for you.
Anything else for 7.2?
No, just that it seems like especially with Inglewood's mix of zoning, that could be a particularly high impact here. Along with the 7.5 there.
Hasn't that been called out in past sustainability plans for the city already? Construction and So that gives us a leg up there, right?
Yeah, that it's already something in the plan that we should be working towards, which was nice to see that it was a recommendation to do. Okay, 7.3, we have implement food scrap curbside services for composting for single-family residents. Great.
This be through like a partner like Compost?
So there's no specifics, right? These are just things for a general blueprint where when it goes to council, if they like the general, like, okay, yeah, we agree with that it would be adopted. It's not gonna be in the weeds of like, we will contract with X, Y, and Z.
Denver has this.
Yeah, I can walk 3 blocks north.
So what's that?
Like I said, I can walk 3 blocks north.
I hear that from people so much. They're like, I'm so frustrated. My neighbor has composting and I don't because we live on the line. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not the person to talk to.
But yeah, no, and it's.
But you are, Mel.
It's interesting to me too that there are 2 different timelines for the regional recommendation is food scrap and yard waste, but that's further out. And then this is food scrap only, whereas I love yard waste too. But that seems to be more feasible sooner. I'm just a little curious about that, not a red flag or anything, just why that specifically for Englewood, and why not just the regional recommendation if it's gonna be a regional solution? Is that food waste kind of like a stopgap to fill that 5-year gap or what?
No, that's a great point.
Well, I was wondering, is the Denver one included in the trash?
Mm-hmm.
So it's automatic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I could see being with our multiple companies and all that kind of stuff, that becomes another whole complicated issue to implement that.
Yeah, and most companies, so like Republic offers composting, trash, and recycling. They do it in Lafayette, but it's really if it's on a single hauler where they can guarantee the stops to make it actually feasible. Because if it's only say like 2 houses in Englewood, that's so cost prohibitive for.
And that was going to be the other side of my question was because it's not automatic. I was a little suspicious of some of the statistics in this when it had surveys of people and 75% of us do recycling, and I thought, that is not true. But people are being really optimistic in the surveys so my issue is that you can have this, you still got to get people to like put it in the container.
Well, that could be 75% of people saying that they recycle, but maybe they're not recycling right, but they're just asking if you're recycling.
Yeah, well, that's why I say there's a difference between, I think, what they're answering and what is actually happening.
There was a different recommendation for like recycling ambassadors and something to kind of address that as well in the plan that we might get to.
As far as adoption?
Yeah, as far as adoption and actually kind of getting community involvement and making sure it's kind of being done right.
I think that's the hardest piece.
This goes really well into a different data point that was in the plan. When they asked people what is their biggest deterrent or like hurdle from recycling, a lot of them said like the lack of trust in the recycling system. And that's actually better than saying like, well, I just don't care about it. That lack of trust means that there's potential to switch that by saying like, here's your infrastructure, here's what you can do. So that's the power of education. And that'll come to one of the education pieces because this last one has like the 2 recycling ones, and I was asking our consultant like why is that 2 and some other ones like the compost department is 1, and that's what they brought up, like the education piece can actually just do so much, like it seems so soft but actually is very impactful if done well.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, on a quick side note, I think the compost, as far as like what have you, I think Denver, if you live in Denver, that's included, like you don't have to pay for it directly. So I think that makes an impact on getting a company to pick all that up, right? Like they can guarantee that every house at least has the bin. But if you have the bin, it becomes easier to like throw your scraps in there. So I think that's a huge impact.
Isn't Denver, like it's city employees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
So
not.
It's even different
Trash
from
service.
single hauler, I mean,
They
it's a
are,
complete single hauler. 'cause
Right.
it's
Yeah.
only city.
They're in charge of that.
They
So
run it.
That's a much smoother
That's
transition,
good.
yeah.
Anything else on 7.3? Okay, great. 7.4, this one is such an obvious one, just leverage Colorado's EPR for the recycling programs. This is free money, why would we not take advantage of it? Any qualms there with leveraging EPR?
Or the catch just seems to be can you get single hauler and get funding
Not
sooner, right?
necessarily, so you can still leverage EPR if you're not a single hauler. Will it be a little, like, slower and maybe more cumbersome for you and your residents? Likely. But you can also use it for other recycling programs. So it's not limited just to single hauler, which is nice to make it available to everyone.
Can you explain that a little more, the relationship between producer responsibility and single hauler or not single hauler?
Oh, yeah, so we even had the sustainability folks in the local government front range had a presentation from the organization that's helping implement this. And they were saying, if you have a single hauler contract, they already know they can just take your bills from what you have. It's an easy payment, and it's like a one and done. If you have like an open system and your resident wants to take advantage of recycling, the haulers have to go through the EPR to say that they're gonna be offering free recycling, and they're still kind of figuring out those like details throughout it. It seems very mushy. You'll still get it, you'll still get free recycling, it just won't be as cut and dry if you are with a community that already has a single hauler. But they will get free recycling in some way, shape, or form. I will also say too, there is a EPR 101 webinar going on this Thursday that I can send out. EPR can seem like this really big beast, and it is. It's like a really awesome bill that got passed, but there's so much things within it. So I can send that to you all as well.
Do you recall how many waste haulers we have licensed for residential at the moment?
In Englewood, I'm not sure. I would guess like 6 or 7.
Wow.
Mayor,
Are
do
you
you
talking
know
about
that?
actual trucks or companies?
Oh, companies.
I thought we got,
I feel
sorry,
like They all consolidated.
I thought that we got down to 2,
No,
and it was because of the alleys.
I was thinking 3.
Oh,
There's
that,
at
you're
least
thinking of
3,
when
and I
they
think
were
there's
trying to go
4.
single hauler? Is that what you're thinking, Elizabeth?
I can find that and send it.
When they
Maybe.
were-
Yeah, it had something, there was like a whole discussion about like the city paying for it or whatever it was, and it was an issue
Just
that
the
we
main
have
one.
alleys. And part of it was
So there were
that
some
they won't
haulers
go
that,
down
or
that
the
much.
wouldn't bid on it
I think
because of
4
the
hours.
Yeah,
That's
it was
okay.
something like that, like maybe it was like
Yeah.
2, there was only 2 companies that we could use a program like that for, where the city pays for it, but the alleys became the issue.
I remember that.
It was
Discussion,
such
but it's not.
There are currently 6 licensed trash haulers.
6.
Oh, really?
Hey, I said 6 or 7.
Does it list them like that?
Yep, on the city website.
Waste management.
Northwest Cascade Republic, Summit Environmental Group, Spielman Enterprises, Waste Connections, and Waste Management. That's the junk collectors, so they must not be.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not all weekly trash makers.
Oh. Okay, thanks.
All right, moving on to 7.5. This one is pass an equal space ordinance to ensure multifamily and commercial recycling had this cutoff but have access. And for those that don't know what an equal space ordinance is, it's essentially saying that if you have one of those roll-offs or those big, I don't know what they're called, like the huge trash things in the back, that you also have the exact same space available for a recycling bin. And that does wonders for increasing access.
Yeah, no joke, that's awesome.
Is this for new construction only?
This one was left broad. likely if it got brought in front of council, they would make that decision, but I can see with our contractor if there's like a recommended one way or another.
Does it mean they have space for a bin or that they have an actual recycling bin?
That they have space,
Just that there can be
They don't
one.
that
have
there
to
can
There's
be.
physically room for one.
Mhm.
Seems like a no-brainer, especially for
Yeah.
construction.
Sorry, I'm typing these questions. Is this for just construction? Okay, perfect. For the next one, 7.6, support the transition to organized residential collection across the city. In other words, single hauler, especially when financially and accessibly conducive for majority of residents.
The other part, yeah.
Godspeed.
So, and I don't think it made its way to the table, but another part that on the longer version of that in the plan, it also talked about just the other environmental and sustainability impacts of having 6 different providers driving the same route and emitting greenhouse gases and other pollutants and damaging roads and leaving tire rubber on the roads the entire time. So I think from the point of view of being the Sustainability Commission, that's like 3 different things that really underscore that point for me.
You're aware that the city went through this a few years ago.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And when I've mentioned it to all of council before, I've said, like, I know that it's not just like a snap your fingers type thing, but like, now seems like maybe the time to reconsider.
Well, I think
One
that's-
reason that this also is in here is because of EPR. So one of the reasons it got tabled, not voted down, it just got indefinitely tabled, was cost for trash and recycling. EPR completely takes recycling off of the bill. Now it's just trash. So if there ever was a time to look at it from a financial perspective, this is a really good time to do it.
Maybe a dumb question, but how does creating a single hauler divert more waste than having multiple haulers?
So having a single hauler, there's a few benefits, kind of what Killian already said about less emissions,
Right.
but also you can get more data from your haulers. Haulers don't necessarily have to give you any data on the waste that you're diverting. And then it also gets everyone on the same knowledge of what can be recycled and what can't.
Okay,
So then there's not that confusion there.
got it.
I've also heard of cities that, well, it technically isn't one provider where because there's 6 or whatever already serving the city, where they divide the city up. So that's contract, but it's basically not eliminating companies, so you might have 3 companies, they each have a third or whatever. And that's a way to have a
Thank you.
single hauler and not knock people out of the running.
It's kind of a compromise, I like that idea.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't another component ideally be, and then the recycling is automatic and free, as opposed to currently with waste management, I pay extra for my recycling bin?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the other, like, you know, if it eliminates that financial and that logistical barrier of like, you get a bin, you automatically get a bin, and you have to pay more for having the larger trash bin, so maybe think about what you can actually put in that recycling bin. And because if it's free recycling but pay as you throw, the way Denver does it, where you pay more for the bigger trash bins, and like, you know, again, we only have the option of the huge bin, so it's easy to just keep throwing stuff in there right now.
There's been pushback in the city among residents, particularly older residents, about the size of the bin and the difficulty of moving bins, and the fact, and I'm one of these people, I never fill that
Oh, no.
trash bin.
I put one bag in there a week.
Right.
Yeah, you got, the trash bin never fills, but the recycle always fills, and then it only comes every other week.
I know.
Yeah, Sheridan, I think, is a really great example. They have a pay-as-you-throw single hauler system. So if you don't use a lot of trash, you can get the smallest bin and pay as little as you want. Yeah, they have a really good contract.
Well, on the data disclosure, do haulers if you ask them, will they give you that data, or do they not track that data?
If you put it in a contract with them that they have to give that data, then they will. But they don't have to give you anything that they don't want to, because that's their own data that they have.
But it can be written into a contract, required to turn it over.
And you can do that even without a single hauler. You can say, in order to be licensed within our community, you have to provide us annual diversion rate data. There's gotta be more on this one. Someone has to have something.
Maybe that could help with trust, if it is a single, it could help or hurt trust depending on the provider, I guess, if it's single, as far as trust in recycling as a barrier for uptake and as a kind of pushback for the program as well.
The other thing is that if it's done, like if you have the city, everybody's so used to paying for trash and everything like that, that if the city's like, hey, we're gonna go ahead and take it over, you just pay us now, I'd be like, I don't care. I'll pay you, I'm paying for it, I'll pay the city.
As long as it
Like,
doesn't go up.
it's that transit, you get benefits to that.
My crystal ball says that this council won't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. I want to be wrong, but there's enough members that are still on council now that were on it when they had to vote to table it before. And so this seems like something that would be impactful, but is maybe more in the future, especially like effort versus reward, and where do we spend our collective efforts? Because I'm trying to think of a nice way to say dumpster fire, I guess. There was two big issues. One of them was cost. The bids came out higher than most people were paying, and it happened to be right during the pandemic, like right 2020 and 2021, where we had supply chain going nuts and prices that the haulers had to predict to cover their expenses for like 5 years, 10 years. And so they put it fairly high to make sure that they could account for this uncertainty of that world we were in. I do think that what we're paying now is higher than their bids. And I tried to look that up today, but I couldn't find the files at my fingertips. So I'll have to check on that. That was half the issue, and it's hard to argue that residents should have to pay more. And at the time, that's kind of what it showed. That's what their bid showed. The other half was that a subset of Inglewood residents were very, very vocal and had very strong opinions against single hauler. And they showed up in mass with signs and flooded city council comment period and everything, and people that did maybe wouldn't mind single hauler didn't show up. And I don't think that issue has been resolved yet.
What were the concerns they were bringing forward?
It's the
Government
alley, isn't
control.
it?
Part of it was
One is the
alley.
alley.
Just like freedom to choose.
Yeah, a
right?
lot of it was government control. Yeah.
I thought of it, yeah, for some reason, I don't know why I'm stuck, this is so stuck in my brain. But it's because I kept hearing over and over, is like, I don't want my trash cans have always been in the alley. If you've ever lived in a house in Inglewood that has that alley.
That's part of it.
And you're like, I don't want to drag this around to the front of my house.
Yeah, yeah.
And keep it there, figure this out every week, and that would be the alternative, right?
That's
Like,
part of- Yeah, I think that
and
was-
it's there's a finding trucks to go up and down the alleys, especially on paved ones.
Yeah, they have to be smaller.
Yeah,
Oh,
They have to be
And so
smaller
they
trucks,
don't get as
but they
much.
cost more to run, right?
Yeah,
Have alleys.
but one company didn't do it anyway, and the other maybe still does, but people wanted that choice, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also gonna be a tougher sell, the fact that EPR is not dependent on it being single hauler. The fact that we could get by with status quo and get the benefits of EPR, I kinda can't.
I like Bruce's idea. I like the idea that you could actually do both. You could actually have multiple haulers that could work different parts of the city. But the contract basically is a uniform contract with all of them. They all need to provide data regarding their recycling, the whole bit. And that to me is a nice blend because it allows anybody to play in the field.
But it doesn't give that complaint of the individual being able to choose their hauler. So that'll still be there.
That's true. But if you Now, I mean, this is pie in the sky in my mind, but if you were to establish costs that were uniform, that if you want to play in this field, this is what we're expecting, then you might be able to defray that.
So you don't have to sell me on it. I'm just-
Yeah, no, I'm just, because you're bringing up good points.
I think that would be very hard to tell private companies as a pool what they could do, but also me. Is that what you were saying? Like the city saying you can't charge our residents any more than X dollars per month?
Well, I mean, if you actually had a pool, I mean, like I said, it's pie in the sky. I mean, you're so close to a single hauler at that point. But at the same time, if the pushback is that we're not allowing people to play in the field, you know, I had, my idea came up when this whole thing went south was we are sitting on the edge of Denver, who is managing their own. Why can't we just buy their services?
I thought that too. Why don't we just
Why
rent
don't
it
we
from
just-
Denver like the
Because I'm
firemen?
sure that they could
They
expand.
declined. They politely declined.
Did they? Has
Yeah.
that been approached?
They were asked and they politely declined. Maybe things change over time.
A lot of business.
You could even, but with Denver, even if you divided, you know, portions of Inglewood, because I think like there's not a lot of alleys on the other side of, there's certain colleges where you don't have that. Maybe that's what they're fighting too, if that makes sense, Denver. Like you can keep it right within their little, and then
Yeah,
expand
expanding
it.
gets messier and it's, they already have a, Okay, are we going to the next one? Any other comments on this one?
I didn't want to sound like I'm against it.
No, but
Okay.
anticipating,
I agree with
anticipating
you
what council is.
wholeheartedly.
Just
Christine.
not optimistic.
Yeah. My last point for it, which we might be able to make for, and again, it's very, I've heard that all those things are gonna happen, but if we're gonna advocate, well, we can't advocate, but if we're gonna recommend for it, like, as far as I know, I haven't checked recently, but when I moved here, I called every single provider to try to get compost and I still can't. And none of them do.
Because they want you to be on a single hauler to make it cost competitive for them.
So if there's a vocal amount of residents out there who want compost service to be available to them, and that's something that the private sector is failing to provide, that might be another argument for it.
I want to touch on something Christine said earlier, because I do very much agree in my own personal opinion, is that I think city council is so responsive to their residents. They do a phenomenal job at that they a lot of times get the people that don't want what's being proposed. I don't think people come out really that hard for what they want to see, which is unfortunate. So I think that can be a big thing.
It could be put on as a citizen initiative and to ask the citizens to vote and say, hey, do you want a single hauler? And then list the advantages and the disadvantages of it and let the citizens decide. Like you said, the people who are the vocal ones may not be the majority. It's just the people who are the most vocal.
Yeah, public comment is not a vote. It's
Exactly.
public comment.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
And again, if council did adopt this, this is not saying that they're adopting all these recommendations. It's just a blueprint. And the consultant and I are really gonna drive that home when we give our presentation. Okay, so moving on to the next one. The last one, 7.7, ongoing community group engagement, such as the resident champion training that we did throughout this engagement process with universal recycling and accessible guidelines of what can and cannot be recycled.
You should get some maybe testimonials. Cause like Tracy loved it, you know, testimonials.
She told me really good things about it, which I was like, okay, if Tracy likes it, that means it's good.
Quick question, sorry, on the blue boxes, they are just indicating not only implementation, but also active. It's not gonna take 15 years to implement. That's like an active.
Yeah, like actively going throughout.
Okay, so once it
That
starts.
would be so sad. It'll take us 15 years to engage with people on recycling.
Well, we're gonna stay on TikTok.
A question on this one.
Yes.
Do you guys know if the major haulers licensed in Inglewood all have the same requirements? Or do they slightly differ?
That's a great question.
I guess what I'm wondering is, are they close enough or could they be made close enough that they could all use the same guidelines and it could be a requirement for renewing their license that they have to distribute these same requirements and everyone gets the same? Just to reduce confusion and.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure I got that right. So could a requirement for relicensing be that each hauler does what?
Includes a uniform
Recycling list?
recycling guidelines, yeah.
You mean share
So
the
this
same
is,
guidelines or have a uniform list? Which is it?
One or the other.
Yeah, put it, instead of just putting it on residents, put it also on companies making profit off of it. They provide universal recycling accessible guidelines.
Yeah.
this is also another exciting piece coming out of EPR is that the state knows that recycling companies can make it really confusing. They don't mean to, but because they have so many different things, so they're trying to make it more uniform through EPR. Obviously that's not right here, right now, but in the future, hopefully it'll be better. But yeah. I feel
Are
like
you talking about the triangle with the number in it that nobody knows that you gotta look at the number?
Yeah, and some of those aren't even
Some of them
certainly
aren't.
recyclable.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, if you ship this to a facility halfway
Yeah,
across
that's
the
the
world,
tr-
they'll
yeah.
recycle it.
That's the trick of it. You gotta look at the number to know what you're doing.
So that's what the state is trying to get rid of, where if you truly cannot recycle it in the state, you can't have a logo on there.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe
EPR is super thrilling, you guys should do the webinar.
change the logo. Anything that can't go into like just your normal bin needs a different symbol on it. But I'm not in charge of that.
Well, and that varies by part of the country though, too.
Yeah, that's fair, but
Oh, I'm sorry, we had two more on these. Just in the sake of time, I'm gonna say these both at the same time,
Okay.
because I know we have Rick and yours coming up after this. So the last two are Explore Business Waste Diversion Grants to help those businesses with what they need to divert more waste. And the last one is repair/reuse events such as Fix-It clinics for residents, which actually the internal green team at the city is looking at hopefully hosting one in October.
that sounds amazing. I'm so
Yeah.
pumped about that.
Can you explain that a little bit to me? The
Yeah,
repair
yeah, yeah. So the reuse repair events and Fix-It clinics, some places like Denver have an actual like tool library workshop thing, which is super, super cool. But these can also be as simple as like hosting a Fix-It day at your library where residents who are really skilled, say in like sewing, can help someone fix something that's broken. So it kind of like builds community pride, builds relationships and social cohesion while also keeping stuff out of the landfill that doesn't have to be there. It can be as grand or as small as you'd like.
All the stuff your dad taught you.
All the stuff. Okay, so I know that was a lot going through the waste stuff. How are we feeling overall about it? Are we happy with it, not happy with it?
I just want to voice a concern or at least a thought around the process. And maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but I feel like we're being looped in as a commission sort of at the 11th hour. And Mel, correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to check me. But I'd like to have had a conversation with the consultant while these goals were being developed so we could weigh in and impact and even priority rank or, have this conversation.
So these aren't prioritized. That list is not prioritized.
Do what?
So you
Say that
said
again.
priority and rank, so it's not ranked, it's just a list.
Right, but if we're gonna write a letter of recommendation on these goals, I mean, that just seems like a blanket sign off on goals that we didn't really have an opportunity to impact, as opposed to just, in my opinion, an 11th hour conversation here. And now we're being asked to write a letter of recommendation to approve all of these. when we clearly have feedback and thoughts on this. And so maybe it's an indictment on the process, is I'd like to see us be cued in sooner. And I don't know if that's echoed by others, but that's just my 2 cents.
I will say, I appreciate that. I will say, so we got all this from the state, like I said, last week. And because it's through the state and through CDPHD, they have to go through vetting of it first before it gets out to the public. But there was the resident champion training. There was the surveys that went out, the website that was up to give feedback to. And then we had the city council portion where they gave feedback. But I could have done a better job throughout of saying what kind of waste things are you all hoping to see throughout.
I just think that it could be a part, I mean, I believe it is a part of our scope as a commission. The city created this commission, in my opinion, to weigh in on these sorts of things. And I would just like to see it be done earlier in the process is all.
Yeah.
As a commission, not us attending these trainings and public comments as individuals, because we can't do that as a group with Kamal.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just like to have seen our input be solicited.
Earlier.
I think we can still weigh in though on what to recommend to council or otherwise for how to prioritize among these, right?
Yeah,
So the door hasn't, I don't think the door is totally closed.
No, I don't believe, I do believe our input is a bit, it seems like it's a bit capped at this point because we're so far in the process. And I mean, we are being asked to provide our input via a letter of recommendation or not. It would be an indictment too if we decided not to write a letter, but I think we will. But I just appreciated the conversation we had here, and I think we could have worked with the consultant and UML a bit to craft these with our input in mind. That's all.
I do want to say one thing though, is that these are all supposed to be really high level recommendations because each one will have to go back to council and really get thought out. So these are supposed to just be a blueprint in the beginning. So say you're like, I'm really interested in C&D and I wish I had more of a say of how that looks.
Right.
There's so much time for that coming down. This is a high level, like, here's the waste diversion data that we have. And based on all of our feedback that we've received from the community and council and from seeing case studies and our expertise in this field, here's what we recommend you all do to increase your waste diversion as a city.
So it seems to me more like their intent was, yeah, like it's very, we're not saying we agree with this specifically as how you council should run our city. We just think that the conclusions, the non-specific and non-binding conclusions drawn by this study seem, in line with what we think would benefit the city, is my understanding. Like, this is not, none of this is legislation, none of this is like even close to being that.
But a lot of this list was generated from them digging through trash,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we just weren't gonna be there to, I don't know.
Maybe we should have a trash digging day ourselves.
Yes, Rick, why don't you organize it?
I'll be there. I'll be there. Meet me at the dumpster.
I am out of town, but I'll take you through that.
But that's at least that's what we're being asked, right, is do you agree broadly with the conclusion of this study and your recommended suggestions based on the outcome of this study, not do you think that our city council should just do everything that this list says?
I think we got voice at city council for each one of these things coming up.
Right.
And we can look at it and say, Rick's point, hey, maybe this should be a citizen initiative to get a single hauler. Maybe the minority is the loudest, fine, or whatever. This doesn't feel like 11, I'm just saying I don't feel like this is the 11th hour yet.
Right.
I feel like we're just getting to look at our starting point.
And this is supposed to be just a blueprint for going forward. Because again, like, I think we all think that 7.6 will be something that is really hung up for council, but even if they adopt this plan, that doesn't even mean that this will be something that they even say that they want to be brought back. It's just saying, okay, we got this plan with these goals for waste diversion. we agree with them in so many ways.
The other thing is that it can be utilized to lean into if you have something else to chase after or like another goal that's not here. If it supports something on this plan, that you've got some leverage with that too. So if we're say, hey, we would like to see, X, Y, and Z, but it supports 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4.
Right.
It'll give a little leverage to that initiative too. That's what I suspect.
The letter could be drafted.
Although
with
I'm with
specific-
you, I would love to have the consultant here. That would have been amazing to really be like, ask, where did you get that? Why is that? Where's those numbers from? Why do you have 4 symbols? What does this mean? And ask all the questions. That's what I would like.
I think that's where my concern really lies, is I would have just liked to have some FaceTime with the consultant. I understand that there will be time to comment on these and massage, but having not spoken with the consultant, or the opportunity to pepper them with questions and bring additional ideas, and then be directly asked to write a letter of recommendation just seems a little bit backwards. So I just wanted to voice that. It sounds like maybe that's not consensus, but.
Sorry, now I'm getting confused. This is a study, like a characterization study. What is city council meant to do with it?
So this is a study and South Metro Waste Diversion Plan. It's both. The study is within it of all the data, but then the plan is the breakdown of like, okay, here's actually goal areas that the region and each city can do to take forward into the future to divert waste.
So city council would be deciding if
Each
this-
one of these individually.
So
No, what is
no.
the first step? Like they're just
So-
deciding if this general plan is mostly reasonable?
Yeah, so if they adopt, so the plan will not be binding, it's not binding, they're not
Okay.
legally like binded to do any of these. But what it does serve as is a blueprint for like city staff or residents to say, okay, here's what we know, and this plan to take us further to explore for waste diversion. But if council doesn't adopt this, city staff isn't given any directive to even look into these outside of the C&D, which is already in our sustainability
So this is just
plan.
like an opening framework.
Maybe what the approach is there anything that we object to?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, no, I
Yeah.
don't, like any red
Maybe
flags.
we just need
Right,
to
that's
say,
what I was
this
thinking.
all appears to be in line with
Yeah, I
what
agree.
Or anything that's missing.
The thing that's missing for me is any sort of consideration for equity or environmental justice. That might have been outside of the scope of the study as far as, like, it's just considering cost of implementation and, tonnage. Like, how is this going to, how are each of these recommendations going to positively or potentially negatively impact lower income communities? Like, how is the burden of this implementation gonna like, who's gonna bear the burden of any of these particular, like, who's it gonna be up to?
To
Who's
make
gonna have
this
to actually
financially or
do it.
making decisions or?
financially or from a stakeholder perspective, like
Who's gonna benefit too?
who's gonna benefit and or who's gonna have to be the one to actually do it too?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this wording was there, but like, if you force a business into recycling. Well, I guess it is there,
It was
recycling ordinance.
the space for new construction. It wasn't like a grandfather.
Yeah, but that, like, no more new construction, so
I can see council looking at a couple of these and saying that these are business killers. Okay, establish a construction and demolition recycle ordinance. Well, that basically puts additional cost on developers to come into the city and develop. And from that perspective, it could be viewed as a negative.
Yeah, because you're either, that's harder for developers or it raises the cost of living or housing for.
Our housing costs, exactly, they could roll right down into the consumer.
And they're weighing all of this against their other priorities, of which sustainability is last.
And I forget what our vacancy rate is around here for residential. Just just ask her, it's like, they're really nice, you'll like them. Come in and let us ask you questions.
Presenting to different sustainability commissions was also not in their work scope, so they didn't present to any city's commission. It's not like Englewood was the odd one out.
I'm not making a joke. Should we start a subcommittee to meet with their subcommittees of Sheridan and Littleton?
Be like, what do you all think?
Like, what do you guys think? But also, like, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna do this? Like, what do you guys got any ideas? Gonna be brainstorming out there?
Also,
That's a
the
resounding
commission
no.
does not have to write a letter of support for it. If it does feel fast, that is okay. This will still go to council, and without it, that's okay.
When you, the letter of support, now I forget, I have this like vague memory where you wrote something and then we signed it, right?
You guys tell
Or
me
was that
what you
something
want in
different?
there, and then I send it to the chair. But everything is basically, everything is what you say. I just add the like formalities of like, thank you.
And that's what
Yeah.
we would need by the end of July 28th, or?
Yes.
Okay. So that's our takeaway, if we, is to follow up from this meeting. Or now.
So something we've done in the past for these is you all tell me your talking point. Well, first you say if you all even want to write a letter of support, because if it's not there, then it's a waste of time to go into the details. But then you all would tell me what you want exemplified in there of like, we have this letter of support because X, Y, and Z, or if there's any like amendments that you want or anything. And then I know time-wise, because we are already looking at 8 o'clock, if you all want to, we can set another meeting before then, specifically for this if you would like. It's completely up to you all.
I think that'd be a good idea, because then we could potentially get the answers back
From the
from the
consultant.
consultant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, take a
Discuss
breather,
that.
not like,
Yeah,
is that good for everybody?
Yeah, I think we could.
Patrick, did you want to put it to a vote?
I mean, I do want to say though, like, this is a lot of important data and like, this is important work. Whether or not we agree with like all of the rankings and the details, I do think that the plan overall is really important. I don't want to like.
Absolutely.
I'm with
Yeah,
you. I just
yeah.
think maybe we take a minute to think about how we want to
I think the letter of
phrase our
support is there.
answers.
I
If
think
we don't
so,
have to decide
sure.
in like against a
Sure.
time clock.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm 1,000% with you.
is there, because I have everyone in the room now for the second meeting for the letter of support, is there like a day time that kind of works for people that you want me to pitch that way, or should we doodle poll it and do it that way? Doodle poll it. Okay.
Unless we just agree
You got
that it's the same one, the same time.
Do we all have general consensus that that is what we want to do? Another, what I think will be a quick subcommittee meeting for a letter of support?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I don't think we want to
Yes.
rush it. I don't personally want to rush it.
And I don't want you all to feel rushed for it either.
As long as we can attend online.
And I don't know how everybody else feels about in-person or virtual. I like to be in person, but if we're gonna try and keep it short or whatever, I would say like, hey, let's just make it kind of virtual too, just to keep it easy and simple.
I'm just probably gonna be out of town because I'm out of town almost
And
the
then you
whole
can
rest
join
of the month.
virtually.
Right.
Don't backchat. Okay,
Yeah.
company
Okay, well,
dinner
I will
doesn't
send
matter.
out,
Are you still discussing it with the council on August, is it like 4th or something?
July 28th.
And so if we put a pause, then we wouldn't have any sort of letter of support by then?
If we do a second meeting by the 16th of next week, then we'll be good. We can have the letter,
Okay.
it'll be in there, it'll be in the packet, it'll be fine.
Okay.
Oh, so in the next week.
In the next, like week and a half. So I will send the doodle poll out tonight, if not first thing in the morning tomorrow.
How many do you need for a quorum, remind me?
Now that we just need 51% of members. I was like, we just added new people, so I'm not sure. 51%. Okay, I will send that out. I know we're already looking at 8, so if you're fine with it, maybe we go to the next one.
That's it.
Also, thank you all for your input. This is super helpful, and I will make sure that the consultant gets all those questions.
And then, all right, up next, we have the Parks Bond Commission update.
You want me to start?
I can jump in. You want me to jump in?
Run it.
You seem disappointed. Do you really?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Logan and I got to go in this meeting, actually, to the bond committee oversight. I think I said it wrong, but in case anybody is not familiar, the bond that will be used over the next 3 years, 85% of that bond has to be spent over 3 years for improvements in several parks in the area. Anyway, they have a committee, it's internal, departmental, we represent the sustainability portion of that. But there's other teams that are involved, finance, et cetera, and they meet monthly to cover off some of the steps. They have a fantastic project manager. I think some important, not necessarily sustainability, I'm just gonna hit a couple of key dates. If anybody is interested, there are public meetings coming up. So starting with, and I just had this date here. Miller, there's community meetings on July 15th and August 6th. That Miller Park is going to be changed. They're debating how to do it as far as parking structures, what they're gonna do with turf, how are we gonna handle that? Pools going into place, wading pools, all of these things. So public meetings are going to be involved then. Cushing Park has a groundbreaking coming up in August, just an FYI. They're changing some of the playground structures, but they're going to maintain the footprint because it's already under some trees. Bellevue, this is, I think, where we are being asked for suggestions, Logan. You're going to articulate this better than me. So Bellevue, that farm is built on a floodplain, which is an issue. So they need to move the farm, possibly. They have an architect, but they're having issues with this whole thing, right?
Yeah. There was a very specific ask from the committee to the Sustainability Commission. They're going to need to relocate the farm.
What farm?
The Inglewood farm in
At
the.
Petty
at
Zoo, like
Bellevue,
where they
right
keep all
next to
the-
Pirates
Oh.
Cove,
Farm and Railroad.
Farm and Railroad.
Oh.
And so they looked to Elizabeth and I and said, why don't you guys ask the Sustainability Commission what should go there? Because it can't be any built infrastructure.
They can't build a structure.
Sure.
And so this is I think a prime opportunity.
There's a person out there.
Yeah,
She
that's
just
my,
behind the
that's my
door.
wife, she wanted to come. to our
Oh, that's so
presentation,
nice.
Did you order some food, Rick?
Yeah, she's great. Everybody okay with pizza tonight?
So I want to flag that, whether we discuss it now or at our next meeting, we do have time.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really cool opportunity for us to come together, ideate, and think what can go in place of that park that sort of runs along that creek in the heart of Bellevue.
Are they getting rid of the farm or just a different place?
They're
in the
relocating.
park?
They have to relocate
Completely.
it.
So the
And the
question is,
animals.
Did they figure out where?
whether it's a railroad involved with that.
They have an architect that's trying to help them figure it out.
But in the same
I have a 3-year-old.
Bellevue Park area, or,
If
I
they- if they
believe in
did
the
away with
same
it.
area, but I think that there are things
Oh, just
that
moving.
are obviously, again, it's a
That much more
floodplain.
to-
So they have the structure that they need to move and the animals and some of the, I keep saying animals, but you know, like you can't move the goats to like an area where there's no food or there's no, you know what I mean? Like, so there's a question mark around it depending on some of the other things about.
But our component is what goes where they can't build.
What should we put in the floodplain, basically?
They want our ideas. So
They want-
that's, could be a topic for next month's meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably need half an hour to kind of talk through that, but want to flag that, bring some ideas.
okay, let's.
Yeah, it would be, I would almost put like a deadline around it because the thing is how fast do these meetings build up?
And I've never been to
You
this park
lose
before.
control over what, we don't want to fall behind when they're like, oh, you know, that's okay, we'll ask the architect. We want a voice, we're gonna have to move.
Which park?
That's Bellevue. Do you know where Pirates Cove is?
Yes.
Okay, so, and then down the hill, there's that farm.
Okay.
I know did you already get your Santa Claus ticket?
You better.
It's not going till May.
Is that where the dog park is?
No.
Yeah, well, there is
Well,
one
the
there,
dog
but it's
park
like
is behind.
down.
But yeah, I'll,
Yeah.
That type of thing.
no, because I wanna go down there and check it out.
So if you park in the lower parking lot of Pirates Cove and you go down the hill, you'll see that farm. There's a whole train that they have around there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm making a joke, but they do a whole Christmas, like roasting marshmallows, Santa Claus, hot chocolate. It's great if you have kids. And then there's some other things that go on there. But the whole thing is they have had live animals in this farm for a really long time. But it's in a floodplain. That needs to be relocated. So we have to come up. They are asking us to come up with some ideas.
Is the question what kind of plants to put in the floodplain, or is the question what could go there besides plants?
It's all of the above. So structures
Just
cannot
ideas,
go there.
right?
I think you can have like,
Walking path, we could replicate, pollinator, I mean, we need to help narrow the scope of what
have like a
we
soccer
want to
field.
go there. Yeah,
No structures, so no goalposts.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe goalposts don't count, but I think in a floodplain, maybe they don't.
I don't think it has the
Nothing
space
that's-
for that though.
Well,
Yeah, nothing
do we
that's
wanna
gonna cause-
discuss this at the next meeting?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we're starting to discuss it
Yeah,
now.
so that's the request, we want ideas.
I have a question though. Did they give you the lines of the floodplain?
No, but do you want me to get them?
We need it. And the reason is because that floodplain is pretty high in that park. I mean, we're talking a lot of land under that in that floodplain. But I think we'll need to know that so we're able to look at actually a plan of the park itself.
we'll have that.
Mel, I can just email the project manager and ask her that. I don't need to, do I need to go to you and you ask?
No, you can ask her.
Why don't, no, like somehow the rules feel like they're confusing sometimes.
They are.
Also that I'm breaking them.
Gina's staff, you can.
I know, she's really nice. I forget why I know her. I'll tell you this.
Is the
She's an
stream
Englewood
being
resident.
changed at all?
One more time?
Is the stream being changed at all?
That was
No.
mentioned.
Not that I'm aware of. Doesn't mean that it won't. Because they still have, again, they still have, some of the plans are in place, but obviously this is really flexible. Like Miller Field again. There's another one, the rec center community engagement is July 22nd. If you have an opinion about hot tubs, saunas, bathrooms,
Accessibility.
pickleball courts, racquetball courts,
Do you have pictures?
July 22nd.
And these are not just like the public coming and talking to Gina, this is the actual design firms behind each of these respective projects being on site, taking feedback from the public. So it is a really neat opportunity to show up and hear from and provide comment. We can-
Specific times are online somewhere.
They are, everything's on, there's a wonderful Inglewood Engaged page for all of this.
Okay.
The project is called Renew and Recreate, or Recreate. But it is on the Inglewood Engaged page, and it has, every project is listed out. I think there's 10 of them currently, and it provides details under each page with timelines of each respective community and events.
Awesome, thank you.
It's just like 50 clicks to get to.
Yeah, it's fun. So pin it on your taskbar.
Yeah, like it is like where the 3 clicks, well, also like rebuild it.
That was the specific ask that I really wanted to flag for our next meeting. And so we will track down the floodplain map with details. Again, we do have time to consider this, but I want to be thoughtful about, getting our ideas in early.
Yeah, so I think the more the better. I think if everybody brings them in, we can discuss them all and then decide what to take. Is that fair, Logan?
Yes, I would think.
So maybe if we could have like, that probably take like 25 minutes now.
For August?
Yeah. Don't you agree, Logan?
Say that again.
If everybody brought in ideas and then we would kind of maybe whiteboard them, discuss the options, and then decide what we will take.
Yeah.
I think that would take 45 minutes, possibly an hour.
If that, yeah, we can.
I mean, we just
We can
discussed
do
that list for like what night, like a long time, hour, 15 minutes. And they're great discussions. I'm just,
Yeah.
And just to clarify, you said it could involve no structure of any kind? like
That's
that?
my understanding. I'll get clarification on that.
It literally cannot put any structures. The whole thing about moving the barn right now is that it sits in the floodplain. They can't even modify the barn. They can't do anything to the barn because.
Well, I didn't know
it's
if you meant
in the
structures as in buildings
Buildings.
or structures like benches or.
no, okay, I don't think,
I think it's a building. I think that's the thing. You guys clarify that too?
What's that?
yeah, I'll get it from Gina.
Because that would,
Sure, I've
that would
seen
have a
like
huge impact on what you could do.
parks and floodplains,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are.
stuff like that.
Or like raised beds, like.
Right.
Yeah,
Isn't
That's
that
a
what
good
they're-
point.
We'll figure it, we'll
Yep.
do quick Google
Yeah.
search.
We have a new park that is a storm runoff. You know, it is floodplain, basically.
Another flag, we discussed the work being done at the Northwest Greenbelt. There's currently an open survey for feedback on Inglewood Engaged, but Gina did mention that the Parks and Rec Oversight Committee is working with the Sustainability Commission on notably native plants and revamping the green space on the south side of the Northwest Greenbelt. And that was news to me.
No,
So-
she was working with the sustainability division, but not
Okay.
commission.
Great, well,
They're
there might,
looking for water-wise plants, right?
correct, I guess that's clarifying, thank you. I had that question is, is there an opportunity for us potentially to weigh in there, or would that be too many cooks in the kitchen?
I think Gina is so open to any resident feedback that you all want to give.
Okay,
I think sometimes you just got a bulldog.
I think there's an opportunity there to take a look at what's currently being done, and I'd like to take some thoughts and feedback on the work currently being done and propose ideas if there's,
You want that on the August 5th too?
I think so.
Okay. No,
So that's Bellevue and Northwest Greenbelt Parks.
okay.
Both in my neighborhood.
A lot of moving parts with this. Again, it was Elizabeth and I's first meeting, but I was thankful that we were invited. And there does seem to be an openness to getting feedback from this group on a number of priorities within this bond. So I just wanted to make sure that we open that line of communication at this meeting. And there will be a standing agenda item on our meetings at this commission meeting going forward to provide, for Elizabeth and I to provide updates and solicit feedback to take it back to the oversight committee. Those are the two big ones that I had flagged.
Yeah.
Rick, anything to add or thoughts?
Oh,
You've been following it a little bit.
no, I appreciate that we've got a presence in that group, because I think that, personal opinion, it really wasn't opened up to the citizens of the city to be engaged with this, but at least having certain groups and commissions involved allows the citizen perspective. And it needs to be given to them. So thank you to both of you.
It was great. To wrap up, if there's no other comments or thoughts, we'll revisit a number of these points next meeting. But the cities, I was taking this seriously. I mean, it was the A team in the room, from finance, from public works, from Parks and Rec, golf library. I mean, it's quite a few directors. So this is an opportunity for us to have a real impact.
Early on.
And I'm like really big on community engagement, so I want everybody to go to those meetings.
You should listen to them. They're all online. They're great. More to come.
Fantastic. Sweet. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Our time. Rick, go ahead and take it
Okay.
away.
It's not full story.
So
I'm just kidding.
we're going to talk a little bit about the subcommittee that we put together a couple months ago. And our committee has met a number of times. We've actually had 4 complete subcommittee meetings since we formed this. And I want to specifically thank Hillary, thank Dana, who is online and will be able to feed information and answer questions, and Elizabeth. Michael is not here, but he's been a big part of this also, and Tracy, who has done a huge amount of the groundwork on some of this, including putting together this short presentation. For those of you who haven't heard what's going on here, this subcommittee was formed in order to explore the idea that we create a certification program for residents to be able to begin and process the transition of their existing non-native lawn into something which is more native friendly, which is pollinator friendly, which is lower water usage, that kind of thing. So And the genesis of this came because I serve also on the Code Enforcement Committee. Code Enforcement is currently looking at redefining what grasses are. Instead of just the word grass, what is grass? There is now, it's native and non-native grass. And how do you enforce that? How do you enforce, currently it's a 6-inch thing. You're supposed to keep it at 6 inches and keep your weeds down. And that's what code does. The problem is that people who are trying to go through the process of transforming into a native environment on their lawn can get dinged because honestly, the beginning of that often looks like a big weed patch because the plants are struggling, they're growing at different rates and things like this. So the idea that we could actually recognize the people who are doing this to differentiate them from the people who are growing long lawns, that's where this whole thing came from. And so we've met 4 times. We began the process of being able to sort of question what is a non-native land, what grass, what is native grass, how do we structure this sort of thing? And what we're asking you today to do is kind of twofold. One is take a look at what we're anticipating as part of a presentation that we would ultimately maybe go beyond this committee to, but also to tell us whether we're on the right track with this thing or not at all. The big piece of this is that this may require ongoing sort of work, either from this committee or from the sustainability area, to be able to evaluate lawns, to certify lawns, to perhaps have to discipline lawns that are not being done correctly. So there's more work than just the process of doing this certification. This is our brief presentation. Elizabeth and I are going to kind of ping pong, and Hillary, you can jump in anytime on any thoughts that you have also on this. And of course, Dana, you're out there. Just put your hand up. We'll bring you in on this. So here's our presentation. Colorado, we're calling it Coloradscape, and one of our members came up with that term, and everybody agreed. Elizabeth came up with Coloradscape. And we like the idea because it Coloradoscaping is a process of bringing native Coloradan plants into your areas. But Coloradscape is rad because it's radical. And we just love that term. So it's Coloradscape certification proposal. Promoting native plants, pollinator-friendly landscapes in Inglewood. So this is an Inglewood-based program. You want to jump to the next one? You want to talk?
Yep. So our vision for Inglewood, the first thing that we're trying to do, or we want to do, is support those residents who want to convert their lawns to native plant landscapes. So this includes things like education, resources, guidance, kind of the how-to, right? Because it can feel overwhelming, or you know what you want to get to, but you don't know how to get there. So that is our first vision.
Mm-hmm. Second one, obviously, fostering ecological stewardship and neighborhood pride. I think that, we just got through talking about trash, and trash is really part and parcel to this, as well as recycling and as well as all of this. But we need to be better stewards, and I think getting the sort of attitude that we need to be better stewards. But the flip side of that is, if you are doing it, then in your neighborhood, you will look like someone who's kind of on the edge of that, and you're going to be the person that someone speaks to and says, hey, how did you do that? Oh, well, let me tell you about this. So the idea of signage in a yard is really a multifold kind of thing. Go ahead.
So the next, providing education and resources on that sustainable landscaping. Taking a step back, we tend to understand or are told certain things that maybe are not the best methods, right, going forward. And so we want to make sure that these things are clear. We would look at this in long term of things, not just these resources, but workshops like hands-on, voluntary exchange of hours, so expertise for exchanging for something else kind of a deal. So we're looking to help people learn about all the things that they don't know and be their desire to learn more.
Obviously, one of the big things that we want to try to do is to first of all, help people in this city to use less water. Residents, if anything is a good indicator, it's the last couple of weeks when we've hit 90-degree temperatures and you can't do anything to keep non-native grass alive. It just wants to die. And if we had a solution for that, then that would help to do that. It also helps save money. My water bills are huge. And so it's something that we need to be focused on. The other part of that is chemicals and the fact that there are an awful lot of chemicals that are applied to yards. And that chemical runoff and runs up into our streams, and it basically does so many bad things that we want to focus on the water usage and then the reduction of chemical usage too. Go ahead.
So, and then lastly, in focusing on enhancing Inglewood's natural beauty, right? So uniquely Inglewood, I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. There is a natural beauty to this area. So we look back at some of the historical things about it. Everything I think I've heard from Carnation City to apple orchards to dairies or what have you. But there's a natural beauty here that we can enhance using native plants and landscaping for that. And Rick brought this up at one of our meetings that had never really occurred to me. He said you can always tell the yards that are native landscapes because they bloom all summer long. I was like, oh dang, that's why the roses die. Okay.
Why native and pollinator friendly? Well, the first statistic is fairly alarming. 40% of pollinators are at risk of extinction. And I've seen it personally in my yard. I count bees in my yard. And every year I know, roughly how many we've got. And this is my wife, by the way, Valerie, just so everybody can see. But Valerie runs a wonderful, beautiful garden, and we have lots of herbs and natural plants that we let go completely to flower so that they're there for the native. They're just not there. The bees just aren't there. And I think that we have an obligation to do the best we can to retain those bees. Turf grass lawns consume significant water and chemicals and maintenance, as we mentioned. Native plants support local ecosystems, conserve water, and reduce emissions. And that's another thing is that, these plants, they wash the air for us. And we don't think about that. But, any place you've got more native plants, you have purer air, and it's better to breathe that. Community education visibility can shift norms and encourage more adoption. We really do want to try to take Englewood from the point of a lot of green grass and a few naturals to a lot of naturals and a few green grass. That's really the big picture shift there. And that's just a nice visual that Tracy put together of how that happens in the little bird in the last scene. Go ahead.
So an overview of what does this actually look like. So first we've got the application is going to be open to current planned and completed native plant landscapes. What that means is that if somebody's already done a little switch somewhere, right, we want that to be rewarded. So if you're already invested in this, we want you to be part of that. So we're not going to limit to that. The processing starts with an application that's a simple online form. We are trying to capture what you think your landscape layout will look like. We would like to get a list of those plants that you are going to incorporate in there, and ideally some images. With that application process on that online portal, we'll still give you access to resources, plant lists, things like that, everything that you would want to utilize in order to do that. The purpose of that makes it easy on two fronts. One, you have to plan it eventually, right? So in order to make this application, you do have to have a plan, but somewhere along the way you had to have a plan. Two, it makes it easier for step 3. We're going to review these for approval. So right now, this is still TBD, but we would envision this as being still part of either this committee or this commission or a subcommittee. So really it depends on how this program works and what how this pilot program plays out. Last step in that is the certified landscapes. They're going to get a yard sign, and it designates them as certified, which is two-pronged because
What did I say?
code enforcement.
Code enforcement, right. Okay. The code enforcement part has to do with the fact that if a sign is in your yard, code enforcement doesn't worry about that yard. Okay. What that does mean is sustainability does worry about that yard. So you do have someone who's basically overseeing and making sure that yard is moving in the right direction. And we'll talk about this later, but one of the things has to do with the fact that you're expected to weed your yard. You're expected to take care of it. It's not like you just kind of let it go because you threw a bunch of natural, wildflower seeds in there or something. you are really responsible for making sure that that happens. The other part is it's, you know, it's bragging rights, honestly. You know, you're doing a good thing for the environment, so it's kind of cool that way.
It's like the equivalent of a members only jacket.
There you go.
Where you are.
Decoder ring, hold it.
Next slide.
Go ahead.
You could have like a tour, you know how they do the Christmas light tour and people nominate,
Yeah,
you know, for the lights in Inglewood? You could do like a tour.
she's on something.
I think you.
Well, I love the idea. Dan has been talking about that for years. And so this is, I feel like, a really awesome opportunity to implement something like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, and again, we had to hold our group back from going, oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? Because you just go off on a tangent and great ideas start springing out. We hope this is embryonic and that it grows into that kind of thing. So hopefully we'll see that happen. This one has to do with the certification requirements. We tossed this around a lot, and we felt that an adequate area would be about 25 square feet at least. Obviously, people will probably go larger, but that's a 5x5 plot, folks. I mean, you know, it's not very big. And the fact that when you're done with it, when it's reached maturity, its coverage is about 75%. So there's still going to be some open space in there, but that's the goal. So it doesn't look that way at the beginning, but ultimately it ends up being that way. We're looking to be sure that there are pollinator habitat features, that you've got some things growing, hopefully year-round or during the growing season that are going to attract the pollinators. Plan for irrigation and maintenance is really important. You can't just do this without keeping it watered, and it's not going to be, as I think Tracy brought up, she says, I used a lot of water for the first couple of years trying to get this thing established. So you have to put water on it to keep it going, but you also have to weed it. That's part of the contract. And last part is participant signs an agreement to abide by the program practices. So we're holding them to it so that they can keep that yard sign and so that they can kind of keep others in support of them and helping them. I mean, this is an ongoing educational thing. It's not just here you go, you're done, you're certified. We're going to give you continual practices that'll help you to improve your yard.
Is there certification renewal?
Yeah, we're working on that. I think we're going to probably have some kind of it, and that goes back also to cost, which we haven't really addressed yet. It's a little more in the weeds than we want to be right now because we have some other factors associated with it.
So some of the benefits to the community and the city, right? So not just the participants, but as a whole, what we can see coming out of this is water conservation. As Rick mentioned, those plants are going to clean the air, so we're going to have improved air quality. We're going to reduce that stormwater runoff. I forget which meeting, but we talked about that with all the stuff going in the stormwater. And then increase pollinators, birds and butterflies habitats. And again, that pride, that local pride, beautification, and building community connections. As in, I did this in my yard, how did you do it? I can share not only information and knowledge, but I can look at it, admire it, tour it, all of those things. Next slide.
We're anticipating this to be a pilot. We don't expect that we're going to just launch this thing and it's going to roll forward. We're limiting the pilot to the beginning of next year with a goal that we have anywhere from 20 to 50 participants. We started out with the idea of 100, and then we realized that if you make a smaller amount and you exceed it, it looks a lot better than not making your 100. So we figured we'd pull back our number a little bit. A lot of this is going to be dependent on not just this group, but interactions with other parts of the city. We have already approached the water department about helping with some funding for it because we were behind the ball on getting in for the 2016 budget. They backed out of that one, but we've had discussions with Mel. Mel has some ideas, and so we're still looking at ways of funding this going forward. But we see nonprofits getting involved. There's quite a few organizations, and Dana is involved in one of those that would be a feeder kind of thing for this, where we would reference them, give links to be able to get information, find example plans so that maybe they don't have to create it themselves. And then, of course, local experts. And we have a bunch of these in the city already, so that's exciting. We have people that are already doing this that can become experts in that. Success, we're going to be looking at evaluation, feedback from people on how this works. and learn the lessons and take next steps from that. The reason for the limitation is if it doesn't work, you know what, we did our best, we tried. So we're hoping to do that, and then determine from that what our path forward would be with the program. Extreme success is the best thing we can hope for, you know, and if we can get some solid successes, I think that it looks better for the city. It lends credence to the fact that maybe we can get additional funding to help move the program forward. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But no. So an official endorsement to proceed, and that's kind of what we've come to you for is you know, ask us lots of questions, but what is it that we need to do? Did you have a question, Mr. Mayor?
No, Rick, I'm just really impressed with this.
Oh, well, thank you.
This is pretty fantastic. So, yeah, just congrats to you and the team, because I know that we talked about this, like 2 or 3 months ago.
Right.
And I remember all the brainstorming sessions that you had on it. I was like, wow, how are you guys going to be able to fit all this in within such a tight program? And you guys were able to do it pretty quickly. So I'm just impressed.
Right.
It's really cool. Yeah. Nice job, Rick and team.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So that amplification via city communications, you know, we're going to be using hopefully social media. And again, a big piece of that is the communications. Well, we're going to need a little more than just our sort of stamp of approval to move forward with engaging with parts of the city infrastructure. So our hope is that this would be put forth to the council during a study session where we could kind of gauge their acceptance of the idea. If they gave us sort of a tacit approval of it, then that allows us, in a sense, to go back to communications, be able to get some of the resources that we need to move forward on it. We're talking about doing maybe a short video, which would be a sort of FYI thing. Here's how the program works. Here's what you need to do. We'd like to get a web page, a landing page somewhere to be able to direct people to, and possibly tie it in with the Garden in the Box program and with the turf removal program. So they're all kind of integral to each other. You know, we're looking guidance on incentives. What things can we do more of? What have we missed? You know, I'm sure there's a blind spot here. And then support for demonstration sites and future policy integration. So being able to make this more of a part of the group. So open to discussion. I don't want to. We're already kind of running on time. So is there anything that anybody has that they would like to ask or?
I'm saying this as someone who wants this to succeed, but kind of being the advocate and kind of thinking like, if I'm an Englewood resident who doesn't want to be told what to do a little bit, you know, I want to be able to choose from my 6 garbage can providers. But I'm also, it is my lived reality in this city that I have a front yard that it looks like a garden and not like a lawn. And so I have better weeks and I have worse weeks and I have better months and I have worse months. And, you know, it's not a tightly manicured, only native. It's always in a bit of a situation, right? But as far as I can tell, as long as it looks like a garden-ish while you're driving by, I could do whatever I want. So why do I need a sign to let me do that when I'm already currently doing that? Like, I've never heard a single word from code enforcement about my front yard. I've heard about the alley, but I've not heard a single word from, I've never received so much as a warning for, I do have some grasses, but they're like, you can tell that it's a grass and not grass, that are up to 3 feet. I have sunflowers way taller than that. Like, so I'm not quite sure what problem is being solved, but that's only from my personal perspective as a resident and as someone who has the type of lawn I think you're talking about and has never interacted with code enforcement about it.
Thank you.
So
No,
I think if I were council, I'd want to know like a little more about like, who do you actually anticipate those 25 to 50 residents being? Like, what are we trying to do? What resources are we going to try to actually provide? Or like, what issues are code enforcement having with, like, has there been what conflicts have been documented between code enforcement and residents that this is hoping to address?
And I think that's really good questions. This thing pivoted a little bit from that sort of, we need to have some way to keep code enforcement at bay on this, into, I think we would agree that an opportunity to grow something in this city that is unique, that is citizens who may not have taken the steps that you took to be able to move forward because of lack of knowledge, because they didn't know resources. So we want to sort of open that door wider to people, let them know that this is available and the resources that can support that, with the sign being sort of that recognition that you're on the right track.
I think that's what I was missing, is your vision shift from the original conversation that came out of a initial point of contact with code enforcement.
Right. That, good.
It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily like a Venn diagram where those things overlap. It's a, kind of where it's two-pronged. I mean, yes, those situations happen. Also, really the idea is native plants. And I don't know how many in your yard are native either, you know?
Oh, I can give you a list. But,
Oh, that's, you're on it, but you're like one of those.
But also, I don't get to rip out my landlord's non-native perennials and have it all just be little starters, nor do I have $1,000 to drop at Resource Central to do that, right? So it's in transition.
Yeah.
But maybe having that resource for other people who are like, I just want to do it on this little corner, or like I have a little box. I want to take some of my yard away. I think that would be a very accessible way to let people
Dana,
start.
did you want to respond to that? Dana?
Yes, thanks. Well, one thing, this is voluntary and it's for people who want the support. And I think there just are a lot of people who, and the survey we did showed that there are a lot of people who want support in that. And second point, I do know people who've gotten code violations for their landscapes, for their native plants.
My feedback would be put the survey and put those anecdotes in the presentation.
Yeah, I did fail to mention that, and that goes back to, what's our gentleman's name? Who's the?
Colton.
Colton worked to put together a Cracker Jack questionnaire,
Cool.
just an exploratory questionnaire, and I can provide that for you. You can see it.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, but we've passed it out now to one neighborhood nights.
There'll be two more.
And we have two more.
One tomorrow, and then I think the other one is the 16th.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gathering data, and that's again part of, if we go to council, I want them to see statistics. And it's amazing. I mean, the statistics we have of the overwhelming interest that people have in this.
90% of people surveyed.
90% of people surveyed like the idea, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna say, I have more non-natives than native in my yard, but I recently got certified from the Herb Society of America. They have a program called Green Bridges.
Mhm.
The feeling that I got when I put that little sign in my yard is amazing.
That's what we're going for.
I mean, it's such a good feeling.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that really appeals to me about this is, I don't know if you guys have read, is it Doug Talamy? He's a guy, he lives back east, but he's written a couple books on, one of them I think is called Back to Nature. And what he says is so critical is, everybody's like, we'll have green spaces. But he says if we're gonna help and save the pollinators, every yard needs to be a green space, or every other yard, right? They're not just gonna do, 5 miles green space here. So it's for people to have residential areas is gonna be critical for pollinators.
Thank you.
But this is just, man, this is so
Great.
cool. This is so
Thanks.
cool.
Any other questions, anything we missed? I mean, there's a lot of pieces to this, and we can dig into the weeds in it, but this is kind of the general overview.
Well, I think it's a great incentive, and I mean, it's an incentive, it's also a way of spreading the good news, so to speak. But the question I had still goes back to code,
Okay.
and that is, does it require change of code to allow some people to do that, or does it require a change of code that allows everyone to do that? Does you know what I'm saying?
that's
Like the
really a
yards
good
that are
question.
already done or in process, mine's in process.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you saying just code made?
Well, so
Allowed
things
to have
like,
Actually
native plants?
changing code and changing the municipal code to reflect,
yeah,
this is an exception to.
right, you're saying an
Yeah,
exception
but it's not,
versus other people doing it too. Is that now code that people can then, I mean, or is it only if you're in this program? The code allows you to
From
do
what the code department told me was any intentional planting is exempt from their, I think it's like a 6-inch or something.
6-inch.
Rule.
Currently.
So as long as it's an intentional planting, it can go over that. It's
Oh.
where you see the yards where it's clearly like very much
Just like go.
like Weed City, that you can tell what's intentional and what's not intentional.
and I think the word in the code is also noxious weeds, right?
No, it's weeds, it's called weeds and grasses.
It's
Anyway,
not, oh,
that's-
I thought we added noxious in there.
Well, you mean in the municipal code? You mean in the city?
Yeah, I thought we had a whole discussion on it, that it was noxious.
We're trying to,
Go ahead, Dana.
I think we can do both. And the idea of changing the code is to clarify the language and change the word weed, which is really open to interpretation, to plants on the Colorado noxious weed list. So I guess the answer is you shouldn't have to be in this program to plant native plants. And I think the code should be clarified anyway.
Dana, I'll speak for her. Dana's going to present to the Code Enforcement Citizen Committee next week on what she would like to propose in terms of differentiating weeds and native grasses and non-native grasses and things. So I think that hopefully that committee will make some recommendations for some change in wording to open the door and make it a little clearer on what the differentiation is, even for, not just for code, but for everybody to understand better what this is. So we'll see how that goes.
I think it's important to note that the two don't necessarily overlap. They're just trying to be helpful to each other, if that makes sense. So, trying to give code enforcement this leg up to not run circles. If we got the sign, then we know that this is not something I need to worry about and I can move on.
It's being supervised.
Right. And I think that, yeah, so not to confuse the two, as in they don't need to intersect, but so much as like they're helpful.
They basically touch together. The thing I would really love to get from you folks, and I'm really glad we have almost everybody here from the committee, is whether you feel that should it be successful, hopefully, does this commission support some sort of ongoing subcommittee, at least initially, to be able to evaluate those applications? That's kind of the only place we have to take those right now. But I also know that's a burden, and it could be conceivably a longer than 1-year commitment to do that if things get rolling. Can I ask your opinion on that? What do you think?
I mean, I think this is a great presentation, really well thought out, and I mean, I would be happy to be on a subcommittee if you did that. I think it would be a great subcommittee because it's very focused, has very clear goals and outcomes, and yeah, I support that.
I think maybe for like the pilot program, that could definitely be carried by us. But if it does develop into something larger, we could potentially pass it off to someone who's a full-time employee or something. But yeah, I think at least in this beginning phase,
So at least for this pilot period, do you feel that this group would be able to create a subcommittee to be able to support that? Is that what I'm hearing?
Would the existing subcommittee take vet applications, or would you create a separate new subcommittee?
The goal, this was intended to be a formation committee. This an exploratory committee. And my thought, and I'm open to what the other people in the committee, subcommittees think, but is that we would roll this once this thing got going into another committee. It may include people that have been part of the current subcommittee, but that because the task is going to be different, there's even an in-between group too. There's a if you guys are supportive of this, then we've got a lot of work to do between now and the end of the year to get this thing up and going. So that committee could be different than the one that we've So,
What is the process for getting permission to do this?
So you all, if you all like this idea, you need to have general consensus and or a vote. I like the vote route just because it shows the support of the commission, but up to you all. For the subcommittee representatives to take it to city council, to see the direction that city council wants them to take. But they can't take it on their own without the entire commission's approval.
Is that the vote or the request this evening?
I would request that this committee make it formal in terms of support of this, so we can kind of move forward with the next steps.
Somebody have to do a motion to vote.
Yes.
Motion.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion. If we're
Wait,
at
so
this
sorry,
point.
so this
As
is,
Elizabeth's just shooting looks at me.
so this is, Rick, do you want to clarify? So
That,
voting on,
The vote is to support the formation of a, I don't know, subcommittee, or the
I thought this
formation
was
of
to
a.
take it to council.
To take it to
Okay,
council.
okay, we'll.
Support
Go
a
with
forward
that.
motion to the next step to
Okay,
present to council.
support taking this to council for approval.
I got you.
To form
Yeah,
something.
I mean, I would entertain a
Like,
motion
figure it
for our current subcommittee representatives to take this idea in front of council with the support of the Sustainability Commission.
Second? Is that?
Who did it first?
Logan.
Logan
Logan was the first one.
motioned,
She's second.
Lana seconded.
Any other discussion before we vote?
Any other questions? Not?
I want to note that I would want more clarification as far as the actual, like, guidelines that you're deciding yes or no for approval and the expertise of the members, so that it's not, I'd want to know more about the qualifications of the people who are making that decision to make that decision, and if that's forthcoming, then great.
So like the details of the program?
The details of the, because there's a lot of conventional gardening wisdom that is not necessarily backed by academia, so I kind of want to know more about what's actually being approved or not approved.
Yeah, like I think this is a great idea, but if I'm on
But
the
I-
committee, I'm not an expert on native
Yes,
plants.
none of
and
us
so, Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
None of us are ecologists, and so that's what I want to kind of.
So do we need ecologists on the subcommittee? Is that
Our
what you're asking?
hope is that we, well,
I want to know the sources you're considering.
We need to
right.
show actual reasons.
in the big picture, what I have in reference to some of the budget ideas that we kicked around. One of them was to actually bring on someone or a company that could support that and be both support for the residents trying to do it as well as support for that committee to evaluate. Our goal was to come up with a defined list of plants that would be acceptable. And so start small. It also helps people to focus because there's so many. But some of them are easily accessed in Colorado, other ones are not. But I agree with that. And that would definitely be a part of the next phase of this, was to determine exactly what that meant.
And Julian, maybe this is helpful too, and Mayor Sierra, tell me if you disagree, but what I was advising them, the subcommittee created this really great framework to go off of, but they really need city council's approval to take it further.
Okay.
So I told them not to dive too much into the weeds, because for all they know, maybe city council will vote no and say, we don't want to see this come before us, and then it just gets squashed right then
Okay,
and
so
there.
let's say, yeah, we don't, got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, Mel. I think before we go any further, I think we do need to get the presentation in front of council just to make sure that we're all aligned on the vision. The process questions that came up, I'm not sure who exactly asked that questions. Those are some of the questions that I'm kind of thinking of as well, because we don't want people to just get out of a code enforcement citation by just having to sign up in the yard. So, but yeah, I think council should listen to this, kind of give guidance in terms of where where to take this program potentially.
Thank you. Okay, that helped.
So that changes the motion a bit.
Let's still bring it to council.
Just to bring it to
Yeah,
council.
because
Yeah.
it's just a general of, do you give them permission to bring this presentation or this idea in this program to city council?
Yeah, is there general support behind this
Christine, did
from
you
the
have?
commission?
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt the vote. I'm excited about it, and this isn't changing my vote, but I'm curious if this is overlapping any existing certification programs that someone could already get, or have any other cities done this that we could borrow and cut and paste from or link off of? And I do like the name, but it doesn't scream Inglewood. So if I saw someone driving down a street, I would think that that's a more statewide program or something, which isn't necessarily a problem. But that's why I'm wondering, are there other certifications like this?
Deanna, you want to address that?
Sure. I'm not aware of any cities that have a certification like this, but there are a number of cities that have programs to support people doing native low water landscaping. There's I could name a dozen.
Are there any certifications or signs or anything from the extension programs or anything like that?
Wild Ones Front Range, well, Wild Ones has a certification. Audubon Rockies has a certification. Colorado Wildlife Federation does. But they don't have the, I guess they have some resources, but we're trying to make it really focused resources to make it easy for DIYers.
I appreciate the feedback about the name because we did go back and forth with the Inglewood.
Having
It's
the word
hard.
Inglewood
I
in there,
think what-
like Ingle something,
Yeah,
you know?
Inglewood, Colorado. The one advantageous thing we thought of was that Inglewood could pioneer something and we would be able to bring the Tri-Cities with us this way.
Love to think.
So do we want to stick with that same motion? Move forward to a vote?
I think I'm just saying if they ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All against, say nay. All right, there you have it.
Did anyone abstain from voting?
Am I an
I'm an
alternate member
alternate.
currently?
Yeah,
or-
so you're fine,
I
But any members
If we didn't have enough members, you would vote
Right.
and it would count, but
But I'm still alternate, right?
you're
Yes.
still alternate, yeah.
Yes. Okay, perfect.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Committee too.
Thanks, subcommittee. It's impressive.
Yeah,
Exciting.
be a program.
Good work.
Will be.
All right. Are we moving to the next thing?
So.
Okay, the final thing is just city updates. This will be so fast because we're pretty late already.
Thanks for staying.
Okay, huge thank you to Tracy. She was at the All-American City Awards. We did not make a top 10, but also Denver didn't either. So if Denver didn't make it, we feel a little less bad about not making it either. But thank you, Tracy. Here are just some council dates that are coming up. Last night we had our first reading for our municipal energy project, which is super exciting. It's gonna, if it gets passed for second reading, it's gonna increase solar, increase our energy efficiency in a lot of our buildings. It's really cool, awesome stuff. We can talk about it when we have more time. And then the Sustainable Business Partnership Program 1-year review. That's not July 28th anymore. That's September 2nd. That's coming down the pipeline. And then the last request I have for you all is we are super lacking on sustainability grant applicants. I think it's because last year it was 1,000, this year it's 500 because it got slashed a little bit. But please get the word out. Residents or businesses can take advantage of it, and it's $500, no match.
You know what, I'm really sorry, I thought that closed on
It
June
extended because we didn't get,
June 30th.
didn't get ones that we could fund, is essentially what it was.
Extended until when?
July 31st, but we might extend it even further if we need to.
I'll get you one.
All right, that's it for me.
Let's see, I guess, quick August meeting ideas, I already have these written down, the Englewood Farm replacement discussion, and we want that on there. Okay, so Mel, do you want to touch on what we have in there already?
Yes, so the water efficiency plan is coming from utilities. They were gonna do this month, but we had the waste plan that was more time sensitive, so they're gonna come give an update on that, which was already approved by the commission 2 meetings ago, I wanna say. And then Rick, I haven't forgotten, you said you would like to hear from Women Who Charge. Does it seem like maybe September would be a better
I don't think
fit?
there's a timeline
Okay.
for it, so.
Perfect.
So then I think instead there, we could do the Englewood Farm replacement. We'll do the communication subcommittee, we'll have a quick update. And then potentially some response, or no, that'll be in the intermediary meeting. So beyond that, any other ideas or topics we want to fit in for the August meeting specifically? If not, feel free to send them along whenever, but yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. It was a great meeting this month. Everybody. Adjourned, meeting's adjourned.
The last meeting was the shortest meeting we've had all year, and this meeting was.
It's a good
We
time.
made up for it, yeah, like they averaged out,
Thank you,
just like.
Mayor. Have a good night.
We haven't gone to night market in a long time.
Night, everyone.
I had a question from a couple months
I'd
ago.
love to be on.
Yes.
Somebody said, oh, this one.
Is what are the rules around
I'm sorry.
having
Let's go forward, I'd love to be on that
podcasters?
subcommittee.
Oh, terrific, great, I appreciate that.